Welcome to the Creative AI Show. What do we have this week, Brian?
Hey Rosh, happy to be here. As always, we are two creative guys talking AI, and this week I'm really excited to talk about just some of the discoveries I made with Leonardo AI and how it's becoming not just its own tools, which are great, but it's starting to incorporate some of the other popular tools, and it's becoming more of like a digital hub in that kind of way. So that's pretty exciting. And then not exciting at all, I want to talk about some bias and compliance in AI. We're starting to run into some issues here as bigger corporations are starting to lean some of their decision making on AI and different things like that. And just want to kind of peel that onion a little bit. What do you have going on?
Well, I think we have an important topic, and that is your website agent friendly? Because agents will be going to your website
Yeah.
and will be looking for information and even maybe booking or scheduling. And if it's not easy, well, you might have a problem in the future. So we'll dig into that. And then also, 1 year of AI video. It
Mhm.
sort of came out, would say maybe a little more than a year ago, but this kind of prompted after Kling shared
Right.
its 1 year anniversary on June 6th, and I did a video about that. And I
Hmm.
just want to talk about, the progress, and I want to get your input
Huge.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you look at the example, and it's a little dated now, but the Will Smith eating spaghetti
Yeah, that
one.
was just a couple
That,
of years ago. And
yeah.
how far have we gotten
Oh
just
my
in 2 years?
gosh. Yeah, especially with Veo and stuff. So I'm excited to talk about that. I'll be honest, nobody's ever asked me if my website is agent friendly. So that's a good question to ask. And,
Yeah.
maybe even laying some groundwork as to how to make it agent friendly would be really cool. Some good info, maybe
Yes.
a good idea for a video down the road. But yeah, actually, I had not to pat my own back here too hard, but I had a decent video this week that's
Hmm.
pushing in the 1,000 view kind of world. And it's about the fact that I popped into Leonardo the other day, and all of a sudden I noticed right up top there that it integrated Google Veo right through Leonardo. And I
Yeah.
was like, hey, this is really cool. I've got, I pay for Leonardo, and I've kind of been tossing back and forth as to whether or not I still want to pay for it.
Hmm.
In the past, I've primarily used Leonardo for image generation. And
Right.
when I do my comparisons, it often isn't the best one. It's not the worst one.
Right.
But, things like Rev or Mid Journey, different ones like that will oftentimes, beat it in these comparisons. So it's like, why do I keep my Leonardo subscription going? But now they're giving us more reasons to hang around.
Yeah.
So, when I have it open here on one of my side screens and I go over to even the image side of things, and, there's all sorts of different models. It looks like it's got about 16 different models in here right now. But one of them that I just noticed is GPT image.
Yeah. Yeah. They,
And,
they
and
launched
yeah,
that the other
so
day. Yeah.
yeah, they launched that. It's a newer one. They also have Lucid Realism, which I believe you did a video on,
Yep.
and Flux One. So they've got new models. But I'm noticing, I'm like, wait a second, Leonardo and ChatGPT, they were, I didn't know they were in cahoots. I thought they were competitors with each other. And the fact that now Leonardo is wanting to be this, one-stop shop for these other programs is pretty cool. And so I decided on the video side of things, because I know Leonardo's a little newer to the video kind of game, and it's not
Yeah.
as well known. It's more known for its, flow state image and stuff like
Which
that.
is wonderful. I like that just
Yeah.
because you can really dig down into what you want to get versus waiting for
Yes.
another round, another round. It really is a nice flow process.
A revolutionary way of generating images. I remember
Yeah.
when you first told me about it, I was like, that's brilliant. You can kind of continue to weave and make your way down the rabbit hole until you get exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
But yeah, I noticed that Veo 3 was there on Leonardo. So I'm like, all right, this is cool as a new model. And it has its other models there, but it's like, hey, Veo 3 is the main cream of the crop these days. So I wanted to do a comparison video of how the Veo 3 runs through Leonardo versus, say, Gemini, which is where I typically access it, even
Right.
2.5 Flash or 2.5 Pro. And I wanted to compare not just the output of it, because I know it's going to be good. Obviously, Veo 3 can produce things that can fool people to thinking they're really, shot.
Hmm.
It's that good. But this is where, maybe the conspiracy theorists or, like we said before,
Tinfoil hat
your
time.
tinfoil hat time coming on. But every single time, and I compared about 3 or 4 videos on my video I put up a few days ago, every single one of the outputs that Gemini gave me was considerably better than the output that Leonardo gave me
Hmm.
using supposedly the exact same model, the exact same tool. And it's like, do you think maybe Google is holding on to like the most advanced piece of Veo 3 and keeping that proprietary and
Yeah.
saying, it's completely reasonable to think this. And like you've got things like, what is it? Dancy face? What is it? The
There's
face?
Fall AI that
Okay.
yeah,
That
so
helps.
so I noticed this with VO2 when I was comparing it, and I'd go over to Fall AI, and it just wasn't as good. And
Yeah.
maybe it has something to do with the processing. Maybe it's the same pipeline into your system, but how you process it. And if
Right.
Google does a better job processing it, maybe that's just off the top of my head. I don't know,
Yeah.
but so it could be
It's a
Google
good question to
putting the
ask.
throttle. Yeah, it might be worth investigating. Does Google throttle it a little bit, or is
Mhm.
it just not processed because it takes up so much power to
Right.
do so on maybe Leonardo's? And I don't know how much processing, if I pulled in the API to Veo 2 or 3, what would I have to do on my end, or would it just, pull it in? Is all the processing happening on Google servers? So um,
Right. Right.
I,
Right.
I
Right.
would think it's all on Google servers, but who knows? So
Right. Well, I noticed, definitely in the length of time it took to generate these, fairly complex videos, Google would tell me, hey, 3 to 5 minutes, but realistically, it was like 45 seconds to a minute.
oh yeah,
And it was done and ready, whereas Leonardo was the full 3 to 5 minutes.
right.
It took time. So one of the hiccups that I hit was Leonardo is one of the ones that's pretty sensitive on any output where it'll blur it and be like, hey, this might be sensitive content or adult content, where I'm like, it's a girl holding a globe. She's not, naked or
I
anything
know
like
they do
that.
that
And
all the time. It's kind of
yeah,
funny.
it's kind of funny. I've always got to click like, okay, let's view the photo, view the photo. But one of the first ones that I wanted to generate was, a multi-generational family around a table, and I had a kid holding a, laughing, holding a corn cob. And it gave me an error saying, hey, it can't generate this. But then I pop over to Google and it generated it just fine.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, there's strike one on Leonardo to where apples to apples, it didn't generate it.
Yeah.
Strike two was that it
Here's
took
the
that
funny
much
thing
longer.
with
Yeah.
Leonardo is that it'll tell you, this may be sensitive, this may be sensitive, and it happened all the time, and I'm thinking, well, does that mean they allow for those sensitive kind of pictures? And so I put in a
Right.
prompt just to test,
Sure,
just to
Rosh.
test.
Sure, sure, sure,
Nothing to see here.
sure.
And and it said, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I
That's good.
like, okay, well, I then what the heck?
Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. It's just like, why have it there if unless you can create, explicit
Right,
or whatever, type of content that you're
right.
creating at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. So, but yeah, so that was strike one. Strike two to me was just the quantity of time that it took to process it. Strike three, and I'm going to go four strikes here. And yes, I know the rules of baseball, but strike
We're in
three.
AI world now. You can go
Yeah,
for it.
right, exactly. There's all new rules. But yeah, strike three was, the actual outputs just weren't as good. There was hallucinations in people's faces. There was, things
Morphing.
that like randomly floated across the screen. Like one of the guy's footsteps was obviously in a puddle and that puddle didn't ripple. And
Mm.
we're used to seeing these things in Kling and Runway and all of these other programs to where, when Google Veo is, your Premiere One, when it's not doing these simple things that were not simple per se, but things that we're expecting to see.
Yes.
If it's not doing that, it's like, okay, well, then there's strike three. And then strike four was just the quantity of credits that it took to generate one of these.
Oh
It works
yeah.
out to like $4 an 8-second video. Whereas on Google, I did hit my limit of quantity of videos, but it only paused me for like 3 hours
Yeah.
as
And,
opposed to, wait another month.
and here's the thing, you can head on over to Google Flow and do a
Okay.
few more.
Right.
So
Yeah.
with the
There's
same with the same
different
subscription.
ways. Right, exactly. Yeah, so different ways to go about it under the same subscription, but I've already generated what 12 different of these videos in the past month and I'm still just at the $20 a month. It's not
Yeah.
surcharging me. It's not nickel and diming me for each one. So I'm already way under that $4 per generation mark that Leonardo has set. So it's like while it's convenient, is it the right way to go about it? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, maybe, maybe they'll come all these the prices are just going to keep coming down. I mean, for all of it. So
Right.
eventually it's going to be worth comparing what Leonardo's doing. Well, just going to the topic we're going to talk about in a little while, just how this is all progressed over the
Right.
last year and the next year. It's just amazing. So,
Well, if the outputs have gotten exponentially better, I can only assume the processing has also gone
yep,
up exponentially to get
yep,
these outputs.
yeah,
So, there's got to be a cost on their end, but as they're figuring it out, they're going to continue to make sure that the cost on our end is relatively stable.
right, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, throwing it back your way, website being agent friendly. And like I told you before here, it's honestly not a question that I've ever been asked before. So I
Sure,
think it's a
and
really
it's a
good
new
question to ask the
question
audience.
to
Right.
think about. I mean, in the SEO world, do you want to make sure that your website can be crawled by Googlebot and tell it where you want it to go and not go, or so forth? Whether it listens is a different animal there. But now with Operator and Manus and the host of all these other AI agents out there that will be doing work and are doing
Yeah.
work,
Currently. Yeah.
your website needs to be friendly. And so, what I would recommend you do, if you're really serious, maybe use Manus, which is less expensive, and you can
Nice.
buy additional credits. So you could spend $200 a month like you do over at Operator, but for OpenAI, but you can start off with $39 and
Nice.
maybe just do it for a month, as
Yeah,
part of
that's
your
reasonable.
test and see,
Right.
can the agent go to your website, fill out the form properly, and ask the questions, to fill the,
Yeah.
say, hey, we need, electrical work done here, this is our address and all that
Right.
stuff. Can it do that and send it to you? Or can it find specific information or pages? It's important. It's going to
At
be
that
more and more important.
at that price point too, it's worth it. Because
Yeah,
if you're missing out on potential business of people using agents on your website, what step one is test it. Test it yourself and
right.
see. And at that, like you said, at that price point, totally worth it to just give yourself a test.
Sure, and try different angles. Try different, make sure if you have a calculator on your website, make sure
Of
the
course.
AI can
Yeah.
use it. I mean,
Yeah.
because it just might to figure out how much it costs to use your service.
Right.
Some services will have a calculator letting you know, okay, if you're going to do this type of project, it'll give you a range from here.
Well, and some people might want their agent to go to multiple websites to
Yes,
get quotes and
exactly.
establish. So, yeah, if this one doesn't give an answer at all, then boom, you're not considered
You're
anymore.
out. You're out.
Yeah.
You're not even part of it because it was,
Four
yeah, because
strikes and
most,
you're out.
yeah, you're out. Yeah, because most likely it's not going to just, someone's not going to say, hey, go to XYZ website. It's going to say, I need this. Go to
Yeah,
multiple websites and then give me a breakdown of the benefits and of
right.
this over that based off of what is there.
Yeah, I can completely say, here's somebody being like, hey, I need an exterior paint job and I've got a, 4,000 square foot home with approximately this much exterior surface. Go to 5 different painters and get a quote.
Yeah.
And yeah, just exactly.
Exactly right. And they can just, put my email in there. So when they respond, it'll come back to my email. I
Yeah,
mean, down the road, eventually I'm sure the agent will take care of it all. But, right
yeah.
now we're just testing the waters. But it is happening now. And no, it's not a big conversation now. But let's again talk a year from now, 2 years from now. That will be the thing.
And
So
what's going to be a conversation 5 years from now is people looking at us like we're crazy. Like you mean to tell me you went to Google and you looked through all of these websites one by one and you spent the time to do
right.
this? Like our modern day process of how we do, a digital search for something is going to be
So archaic.
antiquated shortly. Yeah, archaic, right? Exactly. It's like that screenshot I sent you. It's like I saw somebody just coding, just typing out code like a lunatic.
Crazy. Just crazy.
Crazy people. So, all right, well,
What do
throwing
you got
it back.
next?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit as AI is starting to become more in the news and more politicized, and there's different AIs across the board, and say you got a controversial figure, say the one who owns Grok, perhaps,
Hmm.
and it's known to have the Grok kind of unleashed mode to where it can say things that are a little off the wall and different things like that, but where is the bias getting policed? Where is the governments that hopefully have the best interest of their people out there saying, hey, where are the rules for this? And the EU has the AI Act that it passed in 2024 that ranks the AI systems based on high risk systems, and it kind of gives them all a credit score. based
Interesting.
on the bias of the answer. And it's like, I kind of think, that's the right answer. As much as I'm, kind of conflicted in terms of, the political perspective of oversight of a government or things, but there definitely needs to be a way to trust these systems and to build fair systems
Right.
because now people are making hiring and firing decisions based on AI information
Right.
or other high level decisions. And what is happening here to kind of stem off the bias and to promote that these companies are they're not being nefarious in their efforts.
Well, one of the things is that the trading data. I mean, and they recently said, I don't know where I read it, but somebody saying, well, there's just not enough data out there to not include some, bad, negative or
Right.
harmful information,
Yes.
to train the AIs on. So the AIs are trained on some information, and we are seeing more and more. O3 tried to shut down the system to turn it off multiple
Yeah.
times. They tested it. I mean, there's all these they're getting smarter and they're little trying to preserve their their current
Fair consciousness. I'm
yeah
using air quotes
whatever.
here, but right. I mean, but yeah, actually, I mean, do you know some more information? That's something that happened a couple weeks ago, and I know last week's episode we didn't really touch on too many, current events on things. So is that something you know a little more about or read down that
Not
rabbit
a
hole?
whole lot about other than O3 was tested multiple times, and there are a number of them that were tested to see if they would try to prevent themselves from being shut down. And
Yeah,
O3 actually rewrote some code to prevent it from being shut down,
that's crazy.
readjusted the
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
And so that that's scary. I mean, because we're early days. These
right,
AIs are seem pretty darn smart, but they're nothing to where they're going to be
right.
again a year from now or 2 years from now. They're going to be so much smarter and be able to do so much more.
Yeah,
And so we have to be careful how we train them. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we have to train
And
these, at least one bias, positive human bias, if
right.
nothing else, versus all the theorists out there, AI is going to get so smart and to decide, well, these humans are really messing up their planet.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're the virus.
Yes,
But but yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother, philosophical rabbit hole that we can go down.
we
But
are on a tinfoil hat day. It's
we are
great.
definitely. I'm gonna go watch Signs after this or something. But all right, I want to throw it back your way. Speaking of progress, I loved
Yeah.
your video about Kling 1.0, 1.5, everything like that. What are your thoughts here on the progress over a year?
Well, it is rather amazing. And about a year ago, a
Hmm.
little over a year ago, I created my first, I think I used Lumen Labs to
Okay.
create
Yep.
my first video. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Come on.
I did it I was just doing a project to see if I could, get a room of uh, of stockbrokers, just kind of a
Mhm.
typical computer-filled room stockbroker. And it was just this wild mess of people doing crazy, morphing all over the place. It was just this
Nice.
wild, wild mess. Yeah, 1 year later, I can put that in, well, of course, VO2 or Kling, and I have a guy just talking to me nicely about, the SPY or the QQQ or whatever. And it's very solid and very believable.
Yes.
So, Sora came out earlier, like maybe what, February, March of last year,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And they teased us and we're like, wow, that is so amazing. And then by the time they released it to everybody, it was behind.
Old news. Right. Exactly.
Kling had been really doing its thing, and Pika had, come out, and among others that
Runway.
are
Yeah. Runway was good.
Runway, yeah, I
Yep.
totally forgot about Runway. And in Runway, as of late, we were down on Runway, but
We
Runway
were.
is back, doing a
Yeah.
lot of amazing things. And so now, over this next year, I'll swear to you, because you had mentioned, 2 years ago, we're talking about Will Smith, with
Hmm.
the crazy. Is it 2 years or
Spaghetti.
3 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a
that may have
while
been
ago.
3 years ago, but it was
Yeah.
crazy, crazy Will Smith eating spaghetti all over the place, and now you can get two people talking in a diner and it's really nice, or in a sci-fi situation. In a year from now, they'll all be doing that. And
Yes.
so it, you start to wonder what are the it's really going to be about the workflow, I think, moving forward. Which ones, like a Leonardo, we talked about that. How is that workflow going to get better and better, easier? And which one do you prefer?
Right.
And of course, it's going to get into the details. You get into some of these videos, you look into the little details, like the words in the background, or this person's walking backwards, half a block down the way. That's the
Hmm.
kind of stuff you'll be looking for. The
Right.
real finite details so you can actually use it in your video or film or whatever it may be.
Commercial, yeah, uses. Yeah, I mean, I totally now hold all of these to a higher standard. Whereas, like, some of these outputs, if I had gotten them 6 to 8 months ago, I would be like, this is perfect, this is flawless, oh my
Yeah,
gosh. And now I'm like, look at that one person in the background, they're standing on their tippy toes and they shouldn't be.
right.
It's like these little details, and it's like we're holding it to a higher standard. And it's funny you mentioned this. There is a video that was fully generated by Google Veo that was like pretty much the headline of it was share this with your parents.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay, that's interesting. And it started with a newscaster where
Right.
she looked perfect. And she was like, I don't know if you've seen this video. It's been pretty popular online,
Hmm.
where it was like the U.S. has declared war with Canada,
Right,
and
right,
then all of
right.
a sudden it goes to the streets, and it's like a newscaster at the street where you see, Humvees and people behind, and he's like, here we are at the Canadian border, but there is no war. Why? Because this isn't real. This is AI. I'm not a real person right now.
Yeah.
And then it goes and shows a few other clips. I think there's even like a clip of Morgan Freeman in there and stuff like that, where he's like, you hear me talking, but this is not me.
Right.
And just to kind of share with your parents, because that's the first, I don't mean this in a mean way to them, but if they're not up on the latest technology, they're gonna be the generation that gets fooled by this most
Right.
likely.
Yeah.
Your baby boomers, or that kind of generation, anyone 60 or older, they're gonna look at these and just not really have the eye to detect that this is AI. Whereas you get a teenager now, they can sniff it out right away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or even the S test. That's a tough.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a
So
tough one, and one that we struggle with on the weekly.
yes, absolutely. So the thing is, people have been talking about how the web is now dead because of this.
Yeah,
You're going to have to know that you can go to the Creative AI show, and we're two real guys.
yeah.
There will not
For
be
now,
stand-ins, and if
for
there is
now.
or something like that, it'll be a demonstration, and we'll let you know.
Right.
But this is two people, real human
Yeah.
observations and conversation about creative AI.
Like I see it all the time. Like growing up, I skateboarded and did all those extreme sports
Hmm.
stuff. And I still love, being on Instagram Reels or anything and seeing, a world first of this trick or anything like
Yeah.
that. And it looks unreal. And you go to the comments and they're like, "Pfft, AI, AI." And meanwhile, this dude's in the hospital with a broken, with a busted spleen,
Like
going
this,
like,
this broken arm is not
yeah,
AI.
yeah. Like, can you let AI, cure this? Because I just tried to do a quadruple backflip on a bicycle.
Yeah, right.
But it's that the disbelief now is getting stronger because the AI is getting so good.
Something that's been a lot of fun, and maybe you've seen this recently too, because it's just been coming across my feed a lot over the last couple days, especially, has been historical stuff.
Yes.
Them bringing historical, and they're making it funny. It's the historical figure,
Did you?
holding a selfie cam, explaining what's going, as we know that history, the way it's been written, and
Yeah.
just say I love it. It just brings
I
some interesting things to life.
I saw one that was like a YouTuber interviewing people on the streets, but it was like in the 1500s.
Yeah, right.
And,
Exactly.
yeah, and it was just funny where the guy's like, "Yep, woke up, didn't get the plague today." But it looks so real and so good. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's it's
it's
it's
fun.
fun, but it's scary. But it's fun, but it's scary.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
so.
So
All right, Rash. I think we covered a good spectrum here today.
I think so.
You're
Tinfoil
feeling good
hat
about it?
day, all's well.
Yeah.
So,
Very good.
hey, we are two creative guys talking AI.
Hey, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for listening.